The twin suns of Veronine burned high above the alien city, casting long golden shadows across the marketplace. Merchants shouted in dozens of languages, selling glowing fruits, shimmering fabrics, and strange mechanical devices. The air was thick with the smell of spices, engine oil, and something new, something Kalira had never sensed before. Kalira, a tall and fierce alien huntress, moved through the crowd with practiced grace. Her people, the Verethi, were known for their discipline and strength. She had hunted dangerous beasts, fought in border skirmishes, and survived storms that could strip the skin from bone. Nothing rattled her, nothing distracted her, until now. It was faint at first, like a whisper carried on the wind, a scent that curled around her senses and pulled at her mind. It was warm, deep, and strangely comforting. Her pulse quickened. Before she even realized it, she stopped in the middle of the street, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. And then she saw him, a human male, standing by a merchant stall, speaking to the seller in slow, careful words. He was tall for a human, wearing simple travel clothes stained with dust from the spaceport. His dark hair was messy, his jawline rough, and yet there was something about him that made her eyes stay longer than they should. The scent grew stronger with every breath. Kalira frowned, shaking her head to clear it. This was wrong. Her body was reacting in a way she could not control. She told herself it was some kind of trick, a chemical weapon perhaps. Humans were not dangerous in strength, but they were clever. They used strange tools and subtle poisons. Maybe this was one of those. She moved closer, pretending to browse the stalls. Every step closer made the scent sharper. It wasn't sweet or floral like perfume she had smelled before. It was earthy, alive, like the heat before a summer storm. Her throat felt dry, and her skin flushed. A faint bronze, a reaction she had only felt during combat or deep excitement. The human didn't seem to notice her. He was busy checking a small mechanical part in his hand, speaking softly to the merchant. His voice reached her ears, and she was surprised to find it pleasant, too pleasant. Her instincts screamed for her to step away. Her pride demanded she take control of herself, but her legs carried her closer until she was just a few paces behind him. He turned slightly, and for a second his eyes met hers. They were a deep, steady brown, not unusual for humans, but there was a calm strength in them. Kalira looked away immediately, pretending to study a rack of alien tools. Why was her heart beating this fast? Why did she feel heat in her chest? She didn't like it. She didn't trust it. Her training told her to retreat and observe from a distance. Her curiosity told her to stay and watch. Her instincts told her she was prey to something invisible. And Kalira had never been prey to anything in her life. The human paid for his part, tucked it into a small bag, and started walking away. Without thinking, Kalira followed. The crowd thinned as they moved toward the outer streets. Every time she thought of turning back, the scent faded slightly. Every time she stepped closer, it returned with a rush that made her skin tingle. She hated the feeling of dependence. She hated that someone could pull her along without force. And yet she could not stop. It was as if her body had decided without her. Her mind raced with possibilities. If it was a weapon, she had to know. If it was a natural thing, she had to understand. The human ducked into a side street, quieter and less crowded. Kalira quickened her pace. When she turned the corner, he was there, standing, waiting. His eyes narrowed slightly, but his posture was calm. "You've been following me," he said in clear but accented Verethi. Kalira froze, surprised he had noticed. For a human, he was more aware than she expected. She didn't draw her weapon yet. Instead, she stepped forward, her voice steady but low. "You carry something that affects me," she said. "I demand to know what it is." The human looked genuinely confused. "I'm not carrying anything unusual," he said. "Just spare parts and food." The scent swirled around her again, stronger now that they were alone. Kalira's muscles tightened, her vision sharpened, and her heart refused to slow. This was dangerous. Not because it would kill her, but because it might change her. She decided she would not let him out of her sight until she had answers. The human gave her a cautious look. Whatever this was, it was far from over. Kalira's hunt had just begun. Daniel walked ahead through the narrow street, unaware that every step he took was pulling Kalira deeper into a trap she could not see. Not a physical trap, but something far more dangerous, one woven into her senses, her thoughts, and her will. She kept her distance, but her body betrayed her with every breath. The scent was stronger here, away from the noise and smells of the market. It wrapped around her like invisible chains, each one tightening whenever she tried to think clearly. Kalira had faced death before. She had fought predators that could crush bone in a single bite. But this was different. There was no enemy to fight, no weapon to block, no path to escape. She was the hunter, yet she felt like the prey. Daniel turned into another busy street. Crowds pressed in again, voices loud, colors flashing, smells clashing. For a moment, the strange scent weakened. Kalira slowed, almost relieved. Her mind cleared slightly, like coming up for air after being pulled under water. But then Daniel stopped at a stall selling cooked meat. The scent rushed back into her nose like a wave breaking over rocks. Her chest tightened, her pulse quickened. She stepped closer, telling herself she was only observing him. Yet she knew it was a lie. Daniel spoke to the vendor, smiling politely. The way he moved, casual but certain, kept catching her eyes. Humans were not graceful like her people, yet there was something in his calm, in the way he stood, that made her hesitate. It was as if he carried an invisible gravity, and she was caught in its pull. Her fingers brushed the hilt of her blade. She told herself she should end this now, demand answers, and be free of this strange weakness. But another part of her wanted to wait, to see if the effect would fade. To test her own control. It did not fade. Daniel paid for his food, thanked the vendor, and walked on. Kalira followed again, the noise of the city fading behind them. They reached the outer docks, wide open spaces where cargo ships came and went. Wind from the bay carried this scent straight to her. Clean and sharp, it made her steps faster without her even thinking. Daniel stopped to watch a cargo hauler lift into the air. Kalira stayed behind a stack of crates, her eyes fixed on him. Her mind kept repeating questions. Was it something on his skin, his blood, his breath? Her instincts kept whispering an answer she refused to believe. It was simply him, and that truth frightened her more than any weapon could. She was Kalira of the Varathi, warrior, hunter, protector of her clan. She had sworn to never let emotions cloud her judgment. But the more she fought the pull, the stronger it became. She could feel her discipline cracking, and once cracks began, they could only spread. A voice in her head told her to leave now, to turn her back and never see this human again. But her feet stayed rooted, her body caught between caution and craving. She realized that she had already made her choice. She was going to follow him wherever he went, until she found the truth. Daniel started moving again toward the far end of the docks. Kalira moved too, keeping her eyes locked on him. Her hunt had changed. This was no longer about prey or predator. This was about survival, and she wasn't sure which of them needed it more. The sky over the docks shifted to deep orange as the twin suns began to sink. Long shadows stretched across the steel platforms, turning every corner into a hiding place. Daniel slowed his pace, as if sensing something behind him. Kalira stayed close to the crates, her heart beat loud in her ears. The scent was sharper now, almost electric. Every step he took seemed to pull her forward without effort. Daniel turned suddenly into a narrow maintenance alley between two loading bays. It was quiet here, the noise of engines and shouting workers fading to a faint hum. Kalira followed, her hand resting on the hilt of her weapon. She told herself this was the moment she would confront him, demand answers, and end this strange weakness. Daniel stopped halfway down the alley and turned to face her. His eyes locked on hers with calm but steady focus. "You've been following me," he said his voice even but firm. It was not a question. Kalira's body went tense. The scent rushed into her lungs again, clouding her thoughts. Her instincts told her to strike before he could act, but something in his gaze froze her in place. She stepped forward, her voice low and controlled. "You carry something that affects me," she said. "What is it?" Daniel frowned, clearly confused. "I'm not carrying anything unusual," he replied. "Just tools, spare parts, and food." His words were calm, but Kalira's senses screamed that the truth was deeper. The pull was stronger now than ever. It was not fading, it was growing. She took another step, narrowing the distance between them. Daniel did not back away. Instead, he tilted his head slightly. Studying her, for a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt heavy, charged. Like the sky before a storm, Kalira's fingers flexed on her weapon's hilt. She could end this confusion with one swift motion, but her hand refused to draw the blade. Instead, she found herself staring at his face, the lines of his jaw, the steady rhythm of his breathing. It was maddening. No warrior should lose focus like this, yet she could not stop. Daniel's expression shifted, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "What exactly is happening to you?" he asked. Kalira hesitated, the words tasting strange in her mouth. "My body reacts to your presence," she admitted. "My senses change, my mind slips." She hated speaking the truth, but she needed to know if he understood. Daniel shook his head slowly. "I've never heard of this," he said. "Humans don't notice anything like that from each other." That made it worse. If it was not a human weapon, then what was it? Kalira's pulse raced faster. She felt as though she was standing on the edge of something dangerous and unknown, and a part of her wanted to step forward instead of back. A distant alarm rang out across the docks, breaking the moment. Daniel glanced toward the sound, but Kalira kept her eyes on him. Her hunt was no longer about defeating him or capturing him. It had become something else, something she could not yet name, but whatever it was, it had already started, and she could not turn away now. The alarm's wail grew louder, echoing through the metal corridors of the docks. A deep vibration rolled under Kalira's feet as the ground shuddered. From the far end of the bay, sharp flashes of light lit the sky, followed by the unmistakable thump of weapons fire. Kalira's instincts flared instantly. This was no drill. Someone was attacking, and in the chaos, every shadow could hide a killer. Daniel's gaze darted toward the noise, his jaw tightening. Without a word, he began moving toward the open space. Kalira cursed under her breath and followed. The scent still clung to her senses like a hook, but now it was mixed with the sharp tang of danger. Her mind screamed to focus on the fight ahead, but her body stayed tuned to him. A plasma bolt exploded against the wall just meters from them. The shockwave knocked Daniel sideways. Kalira reacted before thinking, catching his arm and pulling him behind a stack of supply crates. He looked at her with surprise, but there was no time for words. Another bolt tore through the air, scorching the metal beside them. "Raiders!" Kalira growled. Peeking around the crates, dark armored figures were storming the dock platforms. Weapons raised, their ships hovering just above the surface. They were hunting for something, or someone. Daniel crouched low, glancing at her. "I'm guessing they're not here for a friendly visit." She ignored the remark, already mapping a path through the chaos in her mind. A cargo hauler exploded in the distance, sending a shower of debris across the bay. Kalira grabbed Daniel's wrist, pulling him toward a side passage. He resisted for half a second. "I can fight, not against them, human," she snapped, dragging him forward. The scent swirled around her again with every breath, maddening and distracting. She pushed it aside, forcing her mind into the cold focus of survival. They ducked between cargo stacks, moving fast. Raiders swept through the dock, firing at anything that moved. Daniel stumbled once, but Kalira caught him again, her grip strong. Every touch made her aware of the heat in her chest. It was dangerous, not just because of the raiders, but because she was starting to care. Whether he lived, they reached a half-closed blast door at the far end of the bay. Kalira motioned for Daniel to help lift it. Together, they forced it open just enough to slip through. The moment they stepped inside, another explosion roared behind them, sealing the door with falling debris. They were trapped together in the maintenance tunnels, the only way out leading deeper into the docks. Daniel leaned against the wall. Catching his breath, Kalira kept her eyes ahead, scanning for threats. But in the back of her mind, she knew something had shifted. They were no longer just a human and a Verithy caught in a strange encounter. They were now allies, unwanted, forced together and bound not just by danger, but by something far more unpredictable. The maintenance tunnel was dim, lit only by flickering strips along the ceiling. The hum of distant machinery echoed through the narrow walls. Kalira walked ahead, her senses sharp for danger, yet every step reminded her of the human walking. Close behind, the scent had not faded, if anything. The close quarters made it heavier, more present. It was like a warm current in the cold air, wrapping around her until her thoughts were no longer clear. Daniel's footsteps matched hers, quiet but steady. He had stopped asking questions about where they were going. Instead, he kept watching her, as if trying to read something in her movements. That silent attention made her feel exposed, as if he could see past her armor. It was an uncomfortable feeling for a warrior, yet she did not hate it. Finally, she stopped in a small service room. The space was cramped, filled with tools, wires, and an old terminal. She checked the door, making sure it locked. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Are we hiding or trapping ourselves?" Kalira turned to face him fully, her voice steady but her chest tight. "We are safe here for now," she said. "But I need answers before I can trust you." Daniel leaned against a crate, arms crossed. "You keep saying I'm doing something." "To you," he replied. "But I'm not, I swear." Kalira studied him. His words were calm, but the pull was stronger than logic. Every inhale filled her with that same deep warmth. She felt her pulse in her fingertips, in her throat, in her chest. It was not battle fear, not anger. It was something else, something she had never allowed herself to feel. "You don't understand," she said slowly. "When you are near, my body changes. My focus slips, my control weakens. I should see you as an outsider, as nothing more than another species passing through my world. But I can't." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. His eyes searched hers, as if weighing the truth in her words. "What does it feel like?" he asked quietly. Kalira hesitated. How could she describe it? It was like standing too close to a fire. Dangerous, but impossible to step away. It was like breathing air so sharp and pure, it made her dizzy. And it was like the strange peace that came only after a long fight was won. It feels. She started, then stopped, her pride caught in her throat. "It feels like I cannot turn my back on you, no matter what I want." The words left her lips before she could stop them. Her voice was not the voice of a huntress now. It was softer, almost vulnerable. Daniel didn't smile, didn't mock. He simply nodded once, as if he understood more than he said. "That's not something I planned," he told her, "but I'm not going to hurt you." The sincerity in his tone hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, she felt an unfamiliar weight in her chest. Trust, or something dangerously close to it. A sudden rumble shook the floor under them. Dust falling from the ceiling. Kalira's instincts snapped back into place. The raiders were still searching, and the sound meant they were getting closer. She turned away quickly, hiding the change in her face. "We move soon," she said, her voice firm again, but deep inside, she knew that something had already shifted between them, and no battlefield could undo it. The floor shook again, harder this time. Kalira could hear muffled shouts through the walls, followed by the hiss of cutting torches. The raiders were breaching the tunnels. She drew her weapon, the metal blade catching the flicker of the dim lights. Daniel stepped closer, holding a compact human sidearm, small, but deadly in close range. "They're coming in from both ends," Daniel said, his voice steady but low. Kalira nodded, scanning the narrow space. There was no good escape route. The only option was to fight. Her instincts prepared for battle. But another instinct, the one she hated to admit, kept pulling her eyes back to him. She wasn't just planning her survival now, she was planning his too. The first blast door at the far end burst open with a roar of metal. 3 raiders rushed through, armored in jagged black plating, their eyes glowing red under their helmets. Kalira moved fast, striking before they could fire. Her blade cut clean, dropping the first one instantly. Daniel fired 2 sharp shots, dropping another before it could aim. They moved together without speaking, each covering the other's blind spots. It felt strange, fighting alongside someone she had known for less than a day, yet it felt natural. Like they had fought side by side for years. More raiders stormed. And from the opposite end, plasma bolts lit the tunnel in bursts of blue light. Kalira pushed Daniel behind a crate, deflecting incoming fire with her blade. A bolt glanced off her shoulder, searing flesh. Pain flared white-hot, but she stayed standing. Daniel reached for her, his voice tight. "You're hit. I've had worse," she growled, pushing him back into cover. But deep inside, she knew this was different. Her mind wasn't focused solely on winning the fight. It was fixed on making sure he stayed alive. Every time she struck, every time she moved, it was with him in mind. The scent was still there, stronger with the heat of battle. It wasn't distracting her anymore. It was fueling her. A raider charged from the side, weapon raised toward Daniel. Kalira didn't think. She threw herself between them, taking the hit on her armor. The impact slammed her to the ground, air leaving her lungs in a painful rush. Daniel shot the raider down, then dropped to his knees beside her. Her vision swam, but she could still see his face, worried, determined, too close for her to hide anything. "Why?" he asked, his voice raw. She didn't answer at first. Her pride was still a wall between them, but the wall was cracking, and in the space between heartbeats, she let it fall. "Because I will not lose you," she said, her voice rough. "Not a human, not an ally." For a moment, neither moved. The battle still roared around them, but her words hung in the air like a blade's edge. Daniel's eyes met hers, and in that look she knew whether this pull was fate, biology, or madness. It was real, and from this point on, she would fight for him as fiercely as she had ever fought for her clan. She pushed herself back to her feet, tightening her grip on the blade. The raiders were still coming, but Kalira felt no fear. Something inside her had changed. She was no longer fighting to survive, she was fighting for them. The last raider fell with a heavy thud. The tunnel went quiet, except for the faint hum of damaged lights and the slow echo of their breathing. Kalira lowered her blade, her arm aching, her shoulder burning from the hit she had taken. Daniel stood close beside her, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. There was none. For the first time since the alarm began, Kalira let herself breathe deeply. The scent was still there, warm and steady, wrapping around her senses, but it no longer felt like a trap. It felt like something she didn't want to lose. Daniel turned to her, his voice calm but firm. "You saved my life," he said. Kalira's eyes met his. "You saved mine," she replied. It was not just a truth about the battle, it was about everything that had happened since she first saw him outside. The faint roar of engines signaled the retreat of the raiders. They were gone, but the damage to the docks would take days to repair. Daniel glanced toward the exit, then back at her. "I have a ship," he said. "I could use someone like you, if you'd want to come." Her first instinct was to refuse. Her people would see this as weakness, as betrayal of her discipline. The Kalira from yesterday would have walked away without hesitation. But that Kalira no longer stood here. She thought about the scent, about the heat in her chest when she fought to protect him. She thought about the way their movements had matched in battle, without training, without plan. And she thought about the strange truth that had taken root inside her, a truth she could no longer deny. Finally, she gave a small nod. "I will come," she said simply. Daniel didn't smile, but his eyes held something that made the air between them warmer. They stepped out into the fading light together, the smoke of the docks curling into the sky, the stars beginning to show above. For Kalira, it was not the end of a hunt. It was the beginning of something she did not have a name for yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Her path, from now on, would not be walked alone.